For 37 years, I've carried a secret that's eaten me alive. My name is Jake Mercer. I'm 68 years old. I've got maybe 6 months left. Lung cancer, stage 4, spread to my liver. The hospice nurse comes Tuesdays and Fridays. My daughter visits Sundays, brings her kids, and I watch them play in my backyard knowing I won't see them graduate. Won't walk her down the aisle at her second wedding, won't be there. But that's not why I'm recording this. I'm recording this because I have an 8mm film canister buried in a safe deposit box that proves Sasquatch exists. And more than that, proves they've been documenting every genocidal, brutal, unforgivable thing we've ever done to each other. And the United States government knows, has known, for decades. I was a U.S. Forest Service Ranger. 31 years of service. Started in 1979, fresh out of a 2-year stint with the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. I wasn't some weekend warrior or a conspiracy nut with a podcast. I filed reports that determined where roads got built, where timber sales were approved, where hikers were allowed to camp. My signature was on environmental impact statements that went to the Department of Agriculture. I testified before county commissioners twice. I never missed a day of work. Never filed a false report. Not once. Not until September 14th, 1987. Let me take you back there, because if you're going to understand what happened, if you're going to believe any of this, you need to know how normal that day started. How absolutely, brutally normal. It was a Monday. I remember because I'd spent Sunday afternoon watching the Seahawks lose to the Raiders, 35-13, drinking too many Rainiers on my buddy Carl's deck in Randall. Woke up Monday with that particular headache that comes from cheap beer and bad football. My alarm clock, a brown plastic Panasonic RC6015, the kind with the fake wood paneling and red LED numbers, went off at 5:47 a.m. I always set it 13 minutes early. Gave me time to hit snooze once and still feel like I'd won something. The cabin I rented was 12 miles outside Randall, Washington. 800 square feet, propane heat, well water that tasted like pennies. Rent was $340 a month, which was steep, but it came with a garage for my truck and enough land that I couldn't see my neighbors. I'd been divorced for 3 years by then. My ex-wife Sharon got the house in Olympia. Our daughter Emily got weekends with Dad, and I got the quiet. I made coffee in a Mr. Coffee DCM 12, the 12-cup model with the brown glass carafe. Folgers in the red can, 2 scoops, no filter. I'd run out Saturday and kept forgetting to buy more at the IGA. The coffee came out muddy and bitter, but it was hot. I poured it into my Coleman steel thermos, the green one with the dent in the side from when I dropped it off a fire tower in '82. 2 sugars from the Dixie Crystals bag. No cream. I'd learned to drink it black in the Navy, and old habits die. Hard. I ate standing at the counter. 2 pieces of Wonder Bread toast with Skippy peanut butter, a banana that was maybe a day too ripe. The radio on the windowsill, a Sony ICF-30, ran on 4D batteries because the electrical outlet in the kitchen had been dead since April, was playing the morning news on KXXO out of Olympia. The host, Jerry something, had that AM radio voice like gravel in a bucket. He was talking about the stock market crash that was coming. How the Dow had dropped 95 points on Friday and everyone was spooked. Black Monday, he kept calling it, like he could see the future. Turned out, he could. The market would drop 508 points that day, October 19th, 1987. But that was still 5 weeks away. On September 14th, we didn't know the world was about to break. The news rolled into weather. Clear skies, high of 68, perfect conditions for surveying, and then into music. Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive came on, and I clicked it off. I was 31 years old and already too old for that hair metal nonsense. I preferred Fogerty, Mellencamp, guys who sounded like they'd worked for a living. I got dressed in the bedroom. Levi's 501s, the button-fly kind, worn soft at the knees. Red and black flannel shirt from Sears, Dickies brand. Gray wool socks, doubled up because my boots were half a size too big. Danner Mountain Light 2 boots, the leather ones. Not the Gore-Tex models the younger Rangers were starting to wear. I'd had them resoled twice. They'd last another decade if I took care of them. My work belt went on last. Leather, 2 inches wide, Forest Service issue. It carried my Leatherman PST multi-tool. First production year, 1983. I'd special ordered it from the catalog. A Motorola HT220 two-way Radian, fully charged, 6 channels, range of about 15 miles in open terrain. A Silva Ranger compass, and a yellow Write in the Rain notebook. The kind that doesn't fall apart when it gets wet. In the back pocket of my jeans, a Bic lighter, 2 number 2 pencils, and my wallet with $43 in cash and a Texaco credit card I was trying not to use. My truck was parked in the gravel driveway. 1983. Chevy K5 Blazer, forest green with a white top, 4-wheel drive, 87,422 miles on the odometer. It had the 6.2L Detroit diesel engine, slow as hell, but indestructible. The Forest Service had bought it used in '85 from a sheriff's department in Idaho. It still had the spotlight mount on the driver's side door, but they'd removed the spotlight. The interior smelled like old coffee, pine needles, and the faint ghost of whoever had smoked Marlboros in it before me. I loaded my gear into the back. A surveyor's wheel, measuring distance for the timber reports. A Pulaski axe, 5-pound head, hickory handle. A first aid kit in a red nylon pouch, mostly Band-Aids and iodine, but also a snakebite kit I'd never had to use. A canvas tarp, 50 feet of nylon rope, a Stanley thermos full of water, and my cameras. I had 2 cameras with me that day. The first was my Minolta X700. Black body, 50mm lens, the camera I'd bought in 1982 with my tax return. I used it for documentation, evidence photos of trail damage, encroachment, illegal camping. It had a broken shutter. Had been broken since August when I dropped it on a rock scrambling up to a fire lookout. I'd been meaning to get it fixed, but the nearest camera shop was in Olympia, and I kept putting it off. So it sat in my bag, useless, a $400 paperweight. The second camera was my father's, a Bell & Howell 8mm movie camera, model 252. Manual wind, spring-driven motor, no batteries required. My father bought it in 1958, the year I was born, and he'd filmed everything with it. My first steps, my sister's piano recitals, our dog Rusty chasing his tail in the backyard. When he died in 1979, heart attack, age 53, dropped dead in the frozen foods aisle at Safeway, my mother gave me the camera. I'd used it maybe twice. Filmed Emily's 3rd birthday party. Filmed the cabin the day I moved in, like I was making a record for someone who'd never visit. I brought it that day because the Minolta was broken, and I thought maybe I'd shoot some B-roll footage of the fire damage. Just something to have. Something to remember the day by. I didn't know it then, but that camera, that stupid, half-broken, obsolete Bell & Howell my father used to film birthday parties, was about to record something that would destroy my life. I left the cabin at 6:52 a.m. The sun was just starting to burn off the mist in the low valleys, turning everything soft and gray. The truck started on the second try. Diesel engines are stubborn in the cold, and I let it idle for 3 minutes while I smoked the first cigarette of the day. Marlboro Reds, soft pack, $10 from the vending machine at the Range Rider restaurant. I was up to a pack and a half a day by then. Doctor told me to quit. Sharon told me to quit. I told them both I'd quit when I was ready. 37 years later, I'm dying of it. Funny how that works. I pulled out onto Forest Road 23, heading south. The radio came on automatically. Tape deck, AudioVox model, installed aftermarket in '84, and John Fogerty's voice filled the cab. Centerfield. I dubbed the tape myself off the vinyl, so the quality was muddy, but I knew every word. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Today. I sang along, off-key, windows cracked to let the cigarette smoke out. The trees crowded close to the road. Douglas fir, western hemlock, red cedar. Some of them were 200 years old, trunks 6 feet across. The August wildfires had torn through here. 15,000 acres burned, worst fire season in a decade. And my job was to survey the damage, map out the dead timber for the salvage crews. Boring work. Quiet work. The kind of day where the biggest danger was twisting an ankle or getting poison oak on your forearms. I passed the turnoff for Iron Creek Campground at 7:14 a.m. Passed the Dark Divide trailhead at 7:31. The road got narrower, rougher. Potholes from the spring runoff that hadn't been graded yet. At 7:49 a.m., I turned onto Forest Road 25, an unmarked spur road that didn't appear on most maps. It was a haul road, built in the '60s to extract timber, and it was barely maintained. Branches scraped the sides of the Blazer. Rocks pinged off the undercarriage. At 8:23 a.m., I stopped. I'd reached my survey area. Grid reference 46.3721 dig, 121.9890 d, 17 miles northeast of the Dark Divide. Elevation 3,100 feet. No official name. Just a drainage basin with an unnamed creek running through it, surrounded by dense old-growth forest and burn scars from the fire. I killed the engine. Checked my watch. A Timex Ironman triathlon. The original model with the black resin strap and the Indiglo backlight that glowed pale blue-green. It was 8:24 a.m. The plan was simple. Hike the perimeter of the burn zone, take notes, mark dead trees with orange flagging tape, and be back at the truck by 2 p.m. 6 hours of walking. Routine. I gathered my gear, slung the canvas satchel over my shoulder. Inside, the yellow notebook. The Minolta, broken. The Bell and Howell, loaded with a fresh cartridge of Kodak Ektachrome film, 160 ASA, bought on sale at the IGA for $7.99. A wax paper-wrapped sandwich, bologna and American cheese on white bread, no mustard, and an apple. I grabbed the Pulaski axe, locked the truck. The air smelled like it was supposed to. Pine resin, damp earth, the char and ash smell of a month's-old burn. The temperature was 63 degrees. The sky was overcast, gray clouds sitting low over the ridge. It felt like rain was coming. Maybe by evening. Everything was normal. Everything was exactly as it should be. And that's when I noticed the silence. The silence hit me before I'd walked 50 yards from the truck. At first, I didn't register it consciously. Just a nagging sense that something was off. Like when you walk into your house and can't remember if you locked the door. I stopped. Stood still. Listened. Nothing. No birds. No squirrels chittering in the branches. No insects. Not even wind. The forest is never silent. Even in winter, even in the dead hours before dawn, there's always something. A raven's croak, the rustle of a deer moving through underbrush, the creak of trees swaying. But this was the silence of a held breath. The silence of prey animals hiding. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My rational brain started cataloging explanations. Maybe a bear nearby. maybe a cougar. Predators make the forest go quiet. That's normal. That's natural. I touched the canister of counter-assault bear spray on my belt, just a touch, reassurance that it was there, and kept walking. But my lizard brain, the part that still remembered being prey, was screaming at me to turn around. I didn't listen. The burn zone opened up ahead of me, a stark landscape of blackened trunks and ash-gray soil. The fire had ripped through here fast and hot, leaving behind a graveyard of trees standing like charred toothpicks. Some had fallen, crisscrossed on the ground like pickup sticks. I pulled out my yellow notebook, licked the tip of my pencil, and started making notes. Grid 463721N, 121,989 approx, 40% tree mortality, salvage priority high, soil erosion risk moderate. That's when the smell hit me. Not smoke, not char, something else. It rolled down the slope like a physical thing, thick and cloying, coating the inside of my nose and throat. My first thought was, dead elk. We'd find them sometimes after fires, animals that got trapped or overcome by smoke. But this wasn't the rotten meat smell of decay. This was organic, but wrong. Wet fur, musk, like a zoo enclosure that hadn't been cleaned in weeks, mixed with something sharper, copper like blood. And underneath that, a smell I couldn't place. Fermented fruit? Ammonia? It made my eyes water. I gagged, actually put my hand over my mouth and nose, breathing through my fingers. The smell was coming from upslope, maybe 60 yards into the trees. I should have left then. Every instinct I had was telling me to get back in the truck and radio this in. Let someone else check it out. But I was 31 years old and still thought I was invincible. And besides, if it was a dead elk, I needed to document it. Disease control, predator activity, all that bureaucratic nonsense. So I started climbing. The slope was steep, loose with ash and gravel. I used the Pulaski axe like a walking stick, digging the spike into the soil for balance. The smell got stronger with every step. My stomach was churning. I breathed through my mouth, but I could taste it now, coating my tongue like oil. Then I heard it. A sound. Low, rhythmic. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. Like a shovel biting into rocky soil. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The adrenaline hit my bloodstream like a cold wave, and suddenly my hands were shaking, my vision sharpening, every sense cranked to maximum. I wanted to call out, "Hello, Forest Service," but my throat had closed up. The words died before they reached my lips. Scrape, pause, scrape. Whatever was making that sound was just ahead, behind a cluster of standing dead trees. I crouched low, instinctively making myself smaller. My legs were trembling. Not from exertion, from fear. Pure, primal, animal fear. The kind of fear that makes you want to piss yourself. The kind that makes you understand, on a cellular level, that you are not the apex predator you thought you were. I could hear my own breathing, too loud, too fast. I tried to slow it down, in through the nose, out through the mouth. A technique I'd learned in the Navy. It didn't work. My pulse was jackhammering at 140, easy. Scrape, pause, the sound stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I counted seconds in my head. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. At 15 Mississippi, I realized I hadn't taken a breath. I gasped, the sound absurdly loud in the quiet. And then I heard something else. Breathing. Not my breathing. Something else. Slow, deep. The kind of breath that moves a massive chest cavity, pulling gallons of air in and out. I could hear the wetness in it. The slight whistle of air through nostrils the size of quarters. It was close. Maybe 20 feet. Every nerve in my body was screaming, "Run!" But I couldn't move. My legs were locked. Knees trembling so badly I thought they'd give out. I'd heard about this. The freeze response. The thing that happens when fight or flight short circuits and your brain just stops. I always thought that was bullshit, something that happened to other people. I was wrong. I stood there, crouched behind a burned log, shaking like a leaf, my mouth dry as sand, my heart trying to break through my ribs. And I waited. The breathing continued. In, out, in, out. Then, movement. Through the gaps in the standing trees, maybe 40 feet upslope, I saw it. A shape, massive, hunched over, moving. My brain tried to process it. Bear. It's a bear, just a big bear. But the shape was wrong. The proportions were wrong. Bears don't have shoulders like that. Bears don't hunch forward on two legs while using their hands. Hands. Oh God, it had hands. I felt something cold and liquid drop through my stomach. My vision tunneled. The edges of the world went gray and sparkly, and I realized distantly that I was on the verge of passing out. I forced myself to breathe. In, out, in, out. The thing, I couldn't call it a bear, couldn't call it anything, was digging. Its back was to me, covered in reddish-brown fur matted with something dark. Mud? Blood? It was bent forward, arms moving in steady, boom, deliberate motions. It lifted something from the ground, I couldn't see what, and placed it carefully into a shallow depression in the earth. Then it did something that stopped my heart. It arranged stones. Not random, not scattered. It placed them in a circle around whatever it had buried, evenly spaced, perfectly symmetrical. Ritual. The word appeared in my mind like a gunshot. My hands were still shaking. But some part of me, the part that had spent 6 years documenting evidence for the Forest Service, the part that needed proof, needed something, made me reach into my satchel. The Minolta was broken, useless. But the bell and howl was there. My father's camera. My fingers closed around it. I pulled it out slowly, every movement careful, terrified the thing would hear the rustle of canvas or the clink of metal. I brought the camera up to my eye, found the viewfinder. The creature was in frame, massive, broad-shouldered, moving with an eerie gentleness. I pressed the trigger. The camera's spring motor whirred to life, a soft, mechanical whir, and I filmed. 4 minutes, 22 seconds, until the spring motor wound down and the camera went silent. In those 4 minutes and 22 seconds, I watched something that should not exist perform a burial, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch and film and try not to scream. When the camera stopped, the silence rushed back in. And then, slowly, so slowly, it seemed like a nightmare unfolding in real time, the creature paused, tilted its head, listening. It knew I was there. I stopped breathing, completely. My lungs burning, my heart trying to punch through my sternum, every muscle in my body locked rigid. The creature turned, and we made eye contact. The eyes hit me first. Not the size of them, though they were large, maybe twice the diameter of human eyes. Not the color, though they were the deep amber of old honey held up to sunlight. with flecks of gold radiating from the pupils like shattered glass. What hit me was the expression in them. I had seen animals look at me before. Black bears, curious and wary. Cougars, calculating and cold. Elk, panicked and wild. Every animal I'd ever encountered had eyes that were fundamentally other. Alien windows into alien minds, running alien calculations. Threat? Food? Flight? These eyes were different. These eyes were looking at me. Not through me, not past me. At me. With recognition, with awareness, with something I can only describe as sadness. Deep, bottomless, ancient sadness. We stayed locked like that. Eye contact across 50 feet of burned forest. For what felt like an hour, but was probably 5 seconds. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My finger was still on the Bell & Howell's trigger, pressing uselessly against a spring motor that had already wound down. The creature was standing now, fully upright, bipedal. My brain tried again to categorize it. Gorilla. It's an escaped gorilla. Someone's exotic pet. But that didn't work either. The proportions were all wrong. The face was too flat, too human. The brow ridge was pronounced, but not ape-like. The nose was broad, with nostrils that flared slightly with each breath. The mouth was closed, lips pressed together in what almost looked like composure, self-control. And the body, 8 feet tall, easy, maybe 8'2", 8'3", shoulders that would have made an NFL linebacker look like a child. Arms that hung past its knees, but not grotesquely, proportionally like a very tall human's might. Hands that were, God, the hands. 4 fingers and a thumb, clearly visible even at this distance. Nails, not claws. The right hand was resting against its thigh. The left was still holding a flat stone, the last one it had been placing before I'd interrupted. The fur covering its body was reddish-brown, darker along the spine, lighter on the chest and inner arms. Matted, tangled. But underneath, I could see the shape of muscles, the rise and fall of breathing, the subtle shifts of weight from foot to foot. It was waiting. Not stalking, not posturing, waiting. For me to run? For me to attack? I realized with a cold shock that it was waiting for me to decide what happened next. That thought, that single realization, changed everything. Because animals don't do that. Animals react. They follow instinct trees. Threat, flee, food, approach, mate, display. But this thing was deferring. It had seen me. It knew I'd been filming. It had every advantage: size, strength, terrain, surprise. And it was standing there, holding a rock, waiting for me to choose. My fear didn't disappear, but it shifted, transmuted into something more complex. Terror mixed with confusion, mixed with a dawning, impossible understanding. This isn't an animal. This is a person. My hands were still shaking. The Bell & Howell was heavy in my grip, my knuckles white around the leather case. I became aware, distantly, that my legs were about to give out. The adrenaline was metabolizing, leaving me hollow and weak. I lowered the camera, slowly, deliberately, trying to communicate. I'm not a threat. I'm done. See? The creature's eyes tracked the movement, followed the camera down to my side, then returned to my face. It took a breath. I heard it clearly, that deep, wet inhale. And then it did something I still can't explain. It crouched. Not a defensive crouch, not an aggressive crouch. It just lowered itself, brought its massive frame down until it was sitting cross-legged on the ground, back against a charred stump. The stone it had been holding was placed carefully on the ground beside it. Both hands were now visible, resting on its knees, open, empty. The gesture was so utterly, inexplicably human that I felt something crack inside my chest. I'd seen plenty of bears in my years with the Forest Service. Had tracked them, relocated them, darted them for tagging. I'd watched a black bear teach her cubs to fish, slapping salmon out of a stream with the patience of a school teacher. I'd seen elk communicate with body language so precise it might as well have been speech. I'd seen ravens solve puzzles, crows hold grudges, owls hunt with calculated precision. But I had never seen an animal sit down like a man at a campfire. And that's when I noticed the details. The creature's face wasn't uniform fur. Around the eyes, the fur was thinner, almost sparse, and I could see skin underneath, dark, almost black, like well-worn leather. There were lines there, creases, the kind of lines you get from a lifetime of expression. Worry lines between the brows, smile lines at the corners of the eyes. Though it wasn't smiling now, the fur on its chin was grayer than the rest, almost silver. It's old, I thought. Jesus Christ, it's old. And then I saw the injuries. The creature's right shoulder had a patch of fur that was darker, matted down, not mud. I could see the texture, the way it had dried, stiff and crusty, blood. Old blood. A week, maybe more. The wound underneath had to be significant. I could see the faint tremor in that arm, the way it held itself just slightly wrong. On its left forearm, 3 parallel scars ran from elbow to wrist, white against the dark skin underneath the fur. Old scars, years old, the kind you get from something with claws. And its right foot. God, its right foot was missing 2 toes. The fur hadn't grown back properly, and I could see the mangled stumps, the shiny scar tissue. This wasn't some pristine cryptid from a fantasy. This was a living thing that had survived, that had been hurt, that had healed poorly and kept going. It's been in a fight, I thought, recently, and it's hurt. And it's still here, burying whatever that was. We sat there, me standing, frozen, it sitting, watching, for what must have been 2 full minutes. The silence between us was different now. Not the held-breath silence of predator and prey. Something else, something tentative. I should have run. Every protocol I'd ever learned said, back away slowly. Do not turn your back. Return to vehicle. Radio for assistance. But I didn't move, because the creature was crying. I'm not being poetic. I'm not anthropomorphizing. It was crying. Tears were running down its face from those amber eyes, cutting trails through the fur on its cheeks. Its mouth was pressed into a tight line, lips trembling slightly. Its chest was hitching, not with breath, but with suppressed sobs. I watched a tear drop from its chin and land on its knee. And something inside me just broke. I don't know how to explain it. One moment I was looking at a monster. The next moment I was looking at someone in grief, someone who had just buried something precious and been interrupted by a stranger with a camera. Someone who was hurt and alone and trying very, very hard to hold themselves together. The fear drained out of me like water from a broken glass. It was replaced by something I wasn't prepared for. Shame. I had intruded on a funeral. I don't remember making the decision, but I found myself setting down the Pulaski axe. Just leaned it against a burned log, carefully, so it didn't clatter. Then I took 3 steps forward, closer, not farther, and I sat down. Just sat. Right there on the ash-covered ground, my legs folding under me, my hands resting on my knees, mirroring its posture. The creature's eyes widened slightly. Surprise? Confusion? We were maybe 35 feet apart now, close enough that I could hear the wet rasp of its breathing. Close enough that I could smell it properly, not just the overwhelming musk, but the individual components, earth, smoke, something herbal I couldn't identify. And underneath it all, sweat. The smell of exertion, of pain. I didn't speak. What would I say? I'm sorry for your loss? What are you? Please don't kill me? Instead, I just acknowledged it. I looked at the burial site, the circle of stones, the freshly turned earth, and then back at the creature. And I nodded. Once. Slowly. I see what you did. I understand. I don't know if it understood the gesture. But something changed in its face. The tension in its jaw relaxed. The tears kept falling, but the hitching in its chest eased. It took a long, shuddering breath and let it out slowly. Then it did something that made my heart stop. It placed one massive hand, palm spread, fingers splayed, over the left side of its chest, over its heart. Held it there for a 3 count, then bowed its head, just slightly, a dip of the chin. Thank you. That's what it meant. I knew it. The same way you know what someone means when they nod or wave or shrug. Body language that transcends species, transcends language. A gesture of acknowledgement, of gratitude. And without thinking, operating on pure instinct, I returned it. I placed my hand over my own heart, felt it pounding under my palm, still too fast, still racing, and I bowed my head. I see you. I'm sorry. I understand. When I looked up, the creature was watching me with an expression I can only describe as wonder. Its eyes had changed. The sadness was still there. Would always be there, I sensed. But there was something else now. Curiosity, evaluation. It was studying me the way I'd studied it. Taking in the details. My Forest Service uniform, the patch on my shoulder, the camera hanging at my side, my boots, my hands, my face. And then, I swear to God, I will swear this on my daughter's life. It smiled. Not a human smile. The mouth didn't curl up at the corners, no teeth showing. But the eyes changed. The corners crinkled. The brow lifted slightly. The whole expression softened into something that was unmistakably, universally, a smile. You're okay. You're different. You understand. I felt tears prick my own eyes. I don't know how long we sat there. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 20. Time had stopped meaning anything. All that existed was this clearing, this moment, this impossible communion between two beings who shouldn't exist in the same world, but somehow did. Eventually, the creature moved. Slowly, telegraphing every motion, it reached down to its side. I tensed, hand instinctively moving toward the bear spray on my belt, and picked up a small object I hadn't noticed before. It held it out toward me, balanced on its open palm. An offering. I squinted. From 35 feet away, I couldn't make out details. Something small, dark, oblong. The creature made a gesture. Come closer. I hesitated. This was insane. This was suicidal. But I'd already crossed so many lines that day. What was one more? I stood. My legs were stiff, tingling with pins and needles from sitting. I took a step forward, then another. The creature didn't move, just watched me approach, hand still extended. At 15 feet, I stopped, close enough now to see the object clearly. It was a piece of carved wood, maybe 4 inches long, an inch wide. Dark cedar, polished smooth by handling. Intricate designs covered its surface. Geometric patterns I didn't recognize, flowing into each other like Celtic knots. At the top, a hole had been bored through. A leather cord threaded through the hole, a pendant, or an amulet. Something meant to be worn. The creature gestured again. "Take it." I took 3 more steps. Close enough now to touch, close enough to smell the mineral tang of old blood, the sweetness of cedar, the overwhelming reality of other. I reached out. My hand was shaking again, but from awe now, not fear. My fingers touched the wood, still warm from the creature's hand, and I lifted it from its palm. The creature's hand was massive up close, easily twice the size of mine, calloused, scarred. The nails were thick, yellowed, ridged with age. Human nails. Just bigger. I stepped back, clutching the pendant. The creature watched me examine it, watched me turn it over in my hands, feeling the smoothness of the carving, the weight of the wood, watched my face for, what? Appreciation? Understanding? I looked up at it, at those amber eyes, and I said the only thing I could think to say, "Thank you." My voice cracked. I hadn't spoken in over an hour, and the words came out hoarse, barely a whisper. But the creature heard. Its expression shifted again. The smile returned, deeper this time. And then it did something that made me laugh. Actually laugh, a short, shocked bark of sound that echoed in the clearing. It winked. One deliberate, exaggerated, unmistakable wink. And then it stood. The motion was fluid despite its injuries, powerful despite its age. It rose to its full height, towering over me, and for just a second the fear came rushing back. Oh God, what have I done? But it didn't approach. It simply pointed. First at the burial site, then at me. Then it made a gesture I understood. Don't touch. Leave it alone. I nodded frantically. I won't. I promise. I won't. It held up one hand. Stop. The gesture was clear. Then it pointed at the camera hanging at my side. Tapped 2 fingers against its own chest. That's mine. That's my image. My burial. My privacy. I nodded again. I understand. I won't show anyone, I swear. The creature studied me for a long moment, evaluating, deciding. Then it nodded once, satisfied. And without another sound, without ceremony, it turned and walked into the forest. I watched it go, watched the way it moved between the trees, silent, despite its size, barely disturbing the underbrush, watched until the reddish-brown fur blended into the shadows, and I couldn't tell what was creature and what was forest. And then I was alone. I stood there for a long time. 10 minutes? 20? I don't know. Just stood there, holding the carved pendant, my mind blank and screaming at the same time. My legs eventually remembered how to work. I stumbled back to where I'd left the Pulaski axe, picked it up. The weight of it felt wrong, too heavy, too violent. I looked at the burial site, the circle of stones, the freshly turned earth. I thought about digging it up, thought about what might be buried there. Evidence, proof, answers. But the creature's eyes were in my head, the sadness, the trust. the don't touch. I couldn't. Instead, I pulled out my yellow my in the rain notebook, licked the tip of my pencil, and I wrote, Grid 46.3721N, 121.989 8:47 a.m. Encountered large unidentified primate, bipedal, approx. 8'2", tall, no aggressive behavior. Possible burial behavior observed. Marking site as restricted, do not disturb. Recommend no salvage logging in this drainage. Will file full report upon return. I would never file that report. I walked back to my truck. The forest was still silent. The smell lingered in the air, but fainter now. The pendant was in my pocket, a solid weight against my thigh. The Bell and Howell was in my bag, the film cartridge inside still holding 4 minutes and 22 seconds of the impossible. I sat in the driver's seat of the Blazer, door open, feet on the ground, stared at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. That wasn't a monster, I thought. That was someone. Someone grieving, someone who said thank you. Someone who smiled. I started the engine. Bon Jovi was still in the tape deck. Wanted Dead or Alive picked up where it had left off. I ejected the tape and threw it in the back seat. I drove back to the ranger station in silence. And I didn't tell a soul. Not yet. Not for 37 years. But everything had changed. I made it 3 days. 3 days of normal life. 3 days of filing paperwork, measuring timber plots, drinking coffee at the ranger station while Carl bitched about the Seahawks. 3 days of going through the motions while the pendant burned a hole in my nightstand drawer and the Bell and Howell sat in my closet like a ticking bomb. I told myself I was done. I'd seen something impossible. I'd been given a gift, and now I needed to let it go. Move on. Forget. But I couldn't. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw those amber eyes. That expression of grief. Those careful, deliberate hands arranging stones in a circle. What had it buried? The question ate at me, gnawed at my brain during the day, invaded my dreams at night. On Tuesday, I woke up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, Sharon's voice echoing in my head from some half-remembered argument. You're like a dog with a bone, Jake. You can't just let things be. She was right. On Thursday morning, September 17th, 1987, I called in sick. First sick day I'd taken in 4 years. Carl sounded concerned on the phone. You okay, buddy? You sound like hell. Just a stomach thing, I lied. I'll be fine tomorrow. I wouldn't be fine tomorrow. I wouldn't be fine for 37 years. I drove back to Grid 463721N. 121.989 W's in my personal truck. The 79 Ford F-150, baby blue. 142,000 miles, bench seat with a rip in the vinyl that I'd covered with a beach towel. I didn't want to take the Forest Service Blazer. Didn't want this in any official log. I brought tools, a folding shovel from Army surplus, a Maglite 6D cell flashlight, my Polaroid Sun 600 camera, I'd bought it in '83 for taking pictures of Emily, and my Sony TCM 150 cassette recorder. The Bell and Howell stayed home. I couldn't risk exposing that film until I understood what I had. The drive took 73 minutes. I left at 6:15 a.m., arrived at 7:28. The sun was just breaking through the overcast, turning the burn zone into a landscape of long shadows and golden light. Beautiful. Wrong. I parked in the same spot I'd used Monday. The forest was still too quiet. The walk to the burial site took 12 minutes. I counted my steps. 8:47. I marked trees with orange surveyor's tape as I went, telling myself it was so I could find my way back. Really, it was so I'd have something to focus on besides the growing knot of dread in my stomach. The burial site was exactly as I'd left it. The circle of stones, undisturbed. The earth inside slightly mounded. No animal tracks. No sign anything, had been here since Monday. I stood at the edge of the circle for a long time. 5 minutes at least. The shovel felt heavy in my hands. This is desecrating a grave, I thought. This is wrong. But I couldn't stop. I had to know. I pressed record on the Sony cassette recorder and set it on a rock. Took 3 Polaroids of the site from different angles. And then I started digging. The soil was loose, easy to move. 6 inches down, my shovel hit something. Not rock. Something that gave slightly under pressure. I set the shovel aside and used my hands. The bundle was wrapped in enormous leaves. Skunk cabbage, I'd realized later, the leaves bigger than dinner plates. They'd been folded with care, tied with what looked like woven grass. My fingers were shaking as I peeled them back. Inside, 6 objects, small, arranged carefully on a bed of moss. I lifted them out one by one, placing them on the ground beside me. A child's shoe, leather, hand-stitched. Old, maybe 1890s judging by the style. Tiny, meant for a foot no bigger than my palm. A military dog tag. Stamped metal, corroded green. I rubbed the dirt away and read, Kiowa, M. 7th Cav. U.S. Army, 1876, 7th Cavalry, 1876. My brain made the connection. Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. A ceremonial mask. Carved wood painted in faded red and black. Tlingit design, I thought, though I wasn't sure. The left side was cracked, scorched, fire damage. A tintype photograph. Sepia-toned, faded. A Native American woman, maybe 30 years old, holding a child in her lap. Both staring at the camera with the blank, haunted expressions people had in old photographs. Or maybe not blank. Maybe just knowing. A bullet. Not a modern cartridge, a musket ball. Deformed, flattened on one side, impact damage. And a braid of hair, human hair. Black, glossy, bound at both ends with sinew. Maybe 8 inches long. I sat back on my heels, staring at the objects. This isn't a burial, I thought. This is an archive. My hands were numb. I picked up the dog tag again, turned it over. 1876. The woman in the tintype, 1880s. The shoe, 1890s at the latest. These objects were 100 years old. More than that. And they'd been collected, curated, buried with ceremony. Why? The answer sat in my brain like a stone, cold and heavy. Because someone wanted to remember. But remember what? A dead soldier? A dead child? What connected these things? I was so focused on the objects that I didn't hear it approach. But I smelled it. That same musk. Wet fur and copper and fermented earth. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. And there it was. The same creature. Standing 15 feet away, partially hidden behind a standing dead tree. Watching me. I scrambled backward, my boots slipping in the loose dirt. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. It held up one hand. Stop, I stopped. We stared at each other. Its amber eyes were unreadable. Not angry, I didn't think. But not pleased either. More like resigned. Like it had expected this. Like I'd confirmed something it already knew about humans. We can't leave anything alone. I'm sorry, I said again. My voice was hoarse. I needed to know. I needed to understand. The creature tilted its head, studying me. Then, slowly, it stepped out from behind the tree. It was holding something. A wooden box. Small, maybe the size of a shoebox. Dark cedar, polished smooth. Intricate carvings covered every surface. The same geometric patterns as the pendant it had given me. It walked forward. 3 steps, silent despite its massive frame, and set the box on the ground between us. Then it backed away and sat, cross-legged, waiting, an offering, or a challenge. I looked at the box, looked at the creature. "You want me to open it?" It nodded, once. I crawled forward and picked up the box. It was heavier than it looked. Dense wood or something weighted inside. The lid was fitted so precisely I almost couldn't see the seam. I worked my fingernails under the edge and lifted. Inside, more artifacts. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. All small, all carefully wrapped in cedar bark or moss or cloth. I unwrapped them one by one, laying them on the ground. A Star of David pendant on a broken chain. A child's shackle. Iron. Slave collar. So small it made my stomach turn. A fragment of barbed wire with Japanese characters stamped on the metal tag. A burned wooden cross, miniature, the kind the clan would have made. A noose knot. Perfectly tied. Unused, but practiced. A bullet casing stamped with writing. Kent, State, Ohio, May 4th, 1970. A piece of fabric with a pink triangle sewn on. Nazi concentration camp uniform. A coin with a hole drilled through it. Chinese, railroad workers' wages. Beads from a broken rosary with a tag. Magdalen Laundry, Ireland. On and on and on. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the rosary. It clattered against the others. "What?" my voice cracked. "What is this?" The creature didn't answer, just watched me process it. Watched the horror dawn on my face. These weren't random artifacts. These were evidence. Evidence of genocide, slavery, massacres, lynchings, concentration camps, disappeared children, every atrocity, every cruelty, every moment of human evil condensed into small, terrible objects. "You've been collecting these," I whispered. "You've been documenting us." The creature nodded. "For how long?" It held up its hands, fingers spread, closed them, opened them, closed them, over and over, counting. I did the math. 400 years, maybe more. I don't know how to explain what happened next. The creature didn't speak, not out loud. But I heard it, or felt it, or I don't know. The closest I can come is this. Imagine someone pressing their forehead to yours. And in that moment of contact, their thoughts become your thoughts. Their memories become your memories. Their understanding flows into you like water into a cracked vessel. That's what happened. The creature looked at me, really looked at me, those amber eyes locking onto mine. And suddenly I knew. The first memory. I saw through different eyes. Smaller eyes, lower to the ground. A village, not human, not Sasquatch, something else. Something between. They were building homes from bent saplings and woven grass. They were singing. I could hear it. Wordless but melodic. They were laughing. Children were playing in a creek, splashing water at each other, and watching from the tree line. Sasquatch. Dozens of them. Not hiding. Just present. Part of the landscape. Part of the community. The image shifted. New people arriving. Human people. Crossing a land bridge, following mammoth herds. Wearing hides. Carrying etlatls and spears. At first, the humans and the in-between people coexisted. Traded. Shared food. The Sasquatch watched. Wary, but hopeful. And then, fire. Screaming. The humans had decided the in-between people were competition, or demons, or animals. It didn't matter. The result was the same. Slaughter. I saw a mother of the in-between people clutching her child, both of them burning. Saw a Sasquatch trying to pull them from the flames, its own fur catching fire. Saw the humans throwing more torches, more spears, celebrating. The Sasquatch fled into the mountains. The in-between people didn't flee. They couldn't. They were gone. Extinct. Erased. Within a single generation. And the Sasquatch survivors carried one memory. We did nothing. We watched our friends die, and we did nothing. The second memory. Centuries later. The Sasquatch had learned. They hid. They watched. And they watched humans do to each other what they'd done to the in-between people. I saw a Sasquatch crouched in the woods near Wounded Knee, December 1890. Watching U.S. soldiers gun down Lakota women and children. Watching bodies pile in the snow. The Sasquatch crept forward after the soldiers left. Found a child's shoe in the blood-soaked earth. Picked it up. Carried it away. Someone must remember. I saw another Sasquatch in the South, 1920s, hidden in the trees near a lynching. Watching white men laugh and pose for photographs with a black man's body hanging from a rope. After they left, the Sasquatch cut a piece of the rope, took it, buried it. Someone must remember. I saw Sasquatch near the Trail of Tears, near Tulsa, near internment camps, near mass graves, always watching, always hiding, always collecting, not to intervene. They'd learned that lesson. They were too few, too vulnerable. But to witness, to document, to ensure that when humanity finally destroyed itself, and they believed we would, someone would remember the victims. The third memory, 1952. A forest in Oregon, a Sasquatch captured by men in military uniforms. Tranquilized. Transported to a facility I didn't recognize, concrete bunker, underground. Scientists, military brass, government officials, they studied it, measured it, took samples. And then, impossibly, they negotiated. Because the Sasquatch could communicate, not with words, but with this same shared understanding I was experiencing now. And the humans realized. These things are intelligent, sentient, aware. A deal was struck. The government would leave the Sasquatch alone, would protect their territories, would classify all evidence of their existence, would actively discourage investigation. In exchange, the Sasquatch would monitor, would watch, would report unusual activity, Soviet incursions, militia groups, illegal operations in remote areas. They'd be eyes in places humans couldn't reach. Observation units, they were called. The Sasquatch given an ID badge, a number, a job. It worked for 35 years. And then the government started talking about reorganization, about budget cuts, about how the program was no longer necessary in the post-Cold War landscape. The Sasquatch knew what that meant. We're loose ends. The memories released me. I gasped, falling backward, my vision swimming. I was back in my own head, my own body, but the echoes of those images remained. Burned into my brain like after-images from staring at the sun. The creature was still sitting across from me, still watching. I looked at the artifacts spread between us. "You're documenting our crimes," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "You're keeping evidence, because you think we're going to destroy ourselves, and someone needs to remember what we did." The creature nodded. But why? The question burst out of me, raw and desperate. Why do you care? We killed your friends. We've hunted you. We've destroyed everything we've touched. Why the hell do you care if anyone remembers? The answer came, not in words, but in feeling. A profound, overwhelming sorrow. Not anger, not hatred, just grief. And with it, a single thought. Because we remember what it's like to be forgotten. And we will not let it happen again, not to you, not to your victims. Someone must bear witness, even if the witness is the last one standing. I started crying. I don't know why. I wasn't a crier, hadn't cried since my father's funeral. But sitting there in that burned forest, surrounded by tiny monuments to human cruelty, faced with a creature that had spent centuries documenting our worst moments out of pure, inexplicable compassion, I broke. I wept like a child, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. And the creature watched. Didn't comfort me, didn't judge me, just bore witness, the way it had been doing for 400 years. I don't know how long I cried. Eventually, the tears stopped. I wiped my face with my sleeve, sniffing, trying to pull myself together. The government, I said. The deal you made. It's ending, isn't it? The creature nodded. They're going to come for you. Another nod. What will you do? It looked at me for a long moment. Then it reached out, slowly, carefully, and touched the artifacts spread between us. Touch them the way you'd touch something precious, sacred. We will hide, as we always have, and we will keep collecting, as we always have, until there's no one left to collect for. Jesus Christ. I ran my hands through my hair. What am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do with knowing? The creature picked up the wooden box, held it out to me. Bear witness, as we do. That's all anyone can do. I took the box. It was impossibly heavy. If I tell anyone, the creature cut me off with a gesture. Sharp, definitive. They will silence you, and then they will hunt us. So I just keep your secret? Yes. For how long? The creature stood. It towered over me, 8 feet of ancient, weary survival. And then I heard it again. That voice that wasn't a voice, resonating in my chest. Until we're gone, or until you're ready to accept what you are. What we are? The same as the ones who crossed the land bridge. The same as the ones who built the camps. The same as the ones who tied the nooses. The same species, the same capacity. The question is not, will you become them? You already are them. The question is, will you remember? Will you bear witness to your own capacity for evil? Or will you forget and repeat? The words, the feeling, hit me like a physical blow. And then, without warning, the creature's head snapped up. Its nostrils flared. Its whole body went rigid. It grabbed my wrist, its hand completely encircling my forearm, and pulled me to my feet. In the distance, a sound, faint, rhythmic. Helicopter rotors. The creature didn't wait for me to understand. It shoved the wooden box into my hands, then grabbed my shoulder and pushed, spinning me toward the direction I'd come from. Run! The command wasn't verbal, but it was absolute. I stumbled, caught myself, looked back. The creature was already moving, not running, gliding between the trees with that impossible silence, angling upslope, away from the helicopter sound. But then it stopped, turned back, and I saw something in its eyes that made my blood freeze. Goodbye. Not see you later. Not be careful. Goodbye. It knew. It knew what was coming. Wait, I started. It shook its head. One last gesture. Go, now. And then it was gone. Vanished into the forest like smoke. The helicopter sound was getting louder. I ran. The box clutched to my chest, the shovel abandoned, my lungs burning. I'd marked my trail with orange tape, and I followed it now, crashing through underbrush, not caring about noise or subtlety. Just speed. Behind me, the helicopter was close now. I could hear the whoop, whoop, whoop of rotor blades beating air, the high whine of a turbine engine. Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk, if I had to guess. Military. They're here for it. They tracked it somehow. They know. The rational part of my brain was screaming questions. How? Satellite surveillance? Radio collars? Did they follow me? But there was no time for questions. I burst through the last line of trees and saw my truck. The baby blue F-150, impossibly innocent in the morning light. Behind me, a new sound. Voices, shouting, men. I didn't look back. Just sprinted the last 30 yards, yanked the truck door open, threw the box onto the passenger seat, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over. Once. Twice. Come on. Come on. Come on. It caught. The old 300 inline six roaring to life. I slammed it into reverse, spraying gravel, then threw it into drive. The truck fishtailed on the loose dirt of Forest Road 25, and I cranked the wheel hard, straightening out. In my rearview mirror, men emerging from the tree line. 4 of them. Black tactical gear, no insignia, no patches. Carrying rifles, M16s maybe, or Car 15s. One of them raised his rifle. I floored it. The back window exploded. Not shattered, exploded. Safety glass spraying into the cab, peppering the back of my head. I ducked instinctively, the truck swerving, but I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Another shot. The side mirror disintegrated. I was doing 45 miles per hour on a dirt road meant for 20. The truck bounced and shuddered, the steering wheel jerking in my hands. Trees blurred past on either side. Behind me, an engine sound. Different from the helicopter, larger, heavier. I risked a glance in what was left of my rearview mirror. A Humvee, forest green, military, gaining on me. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Forest Road 25 was 3 miles of switchbacks and potholes before it connected to FR 23. 3 miles. I had maybe a minute's head start. The Humvee was faster. I pushed the F-150 harder. 50 miles per hour. 55. The truck screamed in protest, shocks bottoming out on every pothole, but it held together. The first switchback came up fast. Too fast. I hit the brakes, downshifted, cranked the wheel. The rear end slid out, tires scrabbling for purchase on loose gravel. For one heart-stopping second, I thought I was going over the embankment. Then the tires caught. I straightened out, kept going. Behind me, the Humvee took the turn without slowing. Fucking 4-wheel drive. Second switchback. I was ready this time. Braked earlier, took the turn wide, accelerated out of it. The box on the passenger seat slid toward the door. I grabbed it with one hand, pulled it back. The artifacts inside shifted, rattling. 400 years of evidence. Can't lose it. Can't! The third switchback. Downhill now. Gravity working with me. I could see FR 23 ahead. The main forest road. Paved. Wider. I could outrun them on pavement. The Humvee was right behind me now. Close enough that I could see the driver's face in my remaining mirror. Young. Maybe 25. expressionless behind sunglasses. He rammed me. The impact snapped my head back, teeth clacking together. The truck lurched forward, engine roaring. The wooden box flew off the seat, hit the dashboard, bounced into the footwell. I grabbed for it. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. And in that split second of distraction, I missed the pothole. The front right tire hit it dead center. The truck lurched sickeningly to the right, the steering wheel wrenching itself out of my hand. I overcorrected. Too hard, too fast. The world tilted. And then I was rolling. I don't remember the impact. Don't remember the sound. I remember the sensation of tumbling, of gravity becoming a suggestion, of objects flying through the cab, the thermos, maps, the box. And then, stillness. I was hanging upside down in the driver's seat, the seatbelt cutting into my shoulder and lap, blood dripping from somewhere on my scalp, running up my forehead into my hairline because up was down now. My ears were ringing. The truck was hissing. Radiator punctured maybe. Gasoline smell. Strong. Fire hazard. I fumbled with the seatbelt release. My fingers weren't working right. Everything felt distant and slow. The buckle clicked. I fell onto the roof, the ceiling, the inside of the truck. Glass everywhere. I was lying in glass. Move. Get out. Get. The door was jammed. I kicked it. Once. Twice. It bent outward with a shriek of metal. I crawled out into sunlight. The truck had rolled 3 times and come to rest upside down 15 feet from the road. The passenger side was crumpled inward. The bed was sheared off. Total loss. The box. I crawled back to the wreckage. Reached through the broken windshield, feeling frantically in the debris. My hand closed on smooth wood. I pulled it out. The box. Intact. Some of the artifacts had spilled out. I could see the Star of David pendant in the grass. But most were still inside. Behind me, tires on gravel. Doors opening. I turned. 4 men. Black tactical gear. Faces covered with balaclavas. Rifles raised, aimed at me. I stood slowly. Hands up, one hand still clutching the box. "Drop it," one of them said, voice muffled behind the mask. "No." "Drop the box. Step away from the vehicle." "No." My voice was stronger now. "I know what this is. I know what you're trying to hide." The man who'd spoken, the leader I assumed, stepped forward. He lowered his rifle slightly. "Mr. Mercer, you've had an accident. You're confused, possibly concussed. We're here to help." "Bullshit." "Drop the box. Or what? You'll shoot me?" I laughed. It came out bitter, half hysterical. "You're already going to kill me. I know too much. I saw it. I talked to it. You can't let me live." "We're not going to kill you," the man said. His tone was patient, rehearsed. "We're going to take you to a hospital, get you checked out, and then we're going to have a conversation about what you think you saw." "I didn't think I saw anything." "I saw it. I have it." I held up the box. 400 years of evidence. Proof that they exist. Proof that you've known about them. Proof that you've been using them, Mr. Mercer. And now you're going to erase them. Budget cuts, right? Reorganization? That's what you're calling it? You're going to hunt them down and exterminate them because they're not useful anymore, Mr. Mercer. The man's voice cracked like a whip. "You are in possession of classified materials. Materials that were removed from a protected site without authorization. You are in violation of federal law. I am authorized to use force if necessary." "Then use it." I clutched the box tighter. "Shoot me, right here, right now. But this box goes home with me or it goes into the ground with me. Your choice." The men looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. The leader lowered his rifle completely. You don't understand what you're protecting. I understand perfectly. Those things, they're not what you think they are. They're observers, witnesses, archivists. They're dangerous. The man pulled off his balaclava. He was older than I'd thought. Mid-40s, gray at the temples, tired eyes. They have capabilities we don't fully understand. Communication methods that bypass normal channels. They can influence thoughts, implant suggestions. How do you know what you experienced was real? How do you know they didn't make you believe? Stop! I cut him off. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And I know what you're trying to do. The man studied me. A long, measuring look. Then he sighed. You're right, he said quietly. We are going to erase them. Not exterminate, relocate. To a controlled environment where they can be properly managed. A zoo. A sanctuary. A prison. He didn't deny it. The world's changing, Mr. Mercer. We can't have uncontrolled variables roaming national forests. We can't have intelligence assets that might decide to stop cooperating. We can't... He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter. The decision's been made above my pay grade. Then why are you here? To clean up. To retrieve the artifacts they've been hoarding. To ensure that no evidence reaches the public. He looked at the box in my hands. And to make sure witnesses understand the consequences of speaking out. You mean to threaten me? I mean to protect you. His voice was hard now. You seem like a good man, Mr. Mercer. Family man. Daughter, right? Emily, 7 years old? My blood went cold. You don't want to know what happens to people who publicize classified information. You don't want to know what happens to their families. You're threatening my daughter. I'm warning you. He stepped closer. The box stays with us. The artifacts are recovered and classified. You report that you had an accident. Deer in the road, swerved, rolled your truck. You're treated for minor injuries. You go home. You forget everything you saw. And if I don't? He didn't answer, just looked at me. I understood. Disappearance, accident, suicide. They have so many options. I thought about Emily, 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, obsessed with horses. She wanted to be a veterinarian. I thought about the creature, those amber eyes, the grief, the thank you. I thought about the artifacts, the shoe, the dog tag, the shackle, 400 years of bearing witness. And I made my choice. The box is gone, I said. Excuse me? Look around. I gestured at the wreckage. I had the box. I was carrying it when I crashed. Where is it now? The man's eyes narrowed. You're holding it. This? I looked down at the box in my hands. This is empty. I opened it. Showed him. It was empty. The man's face went white. Where are the artifacts? Scattered, all over the hillside. The box opened when I crashed. The contents spilled out. I spent 5 minutes trying to gather them up. I got maybe a dozen pieces back. The rest? I shrugged. Could be anywhere, 100-yard radius, mixed in with all the other debris. It was a lie, a complete, desperate lie. The artifacts were still in the box. I could feel their weight, hear them shift. But I'd opened the lid just enough to block his view, to create a shadow where the contents weren't visible. And I sold it. Put every ounce of conviction I had into my voice. You want them? I continued. Be my guest. Bring a dozen men. Spend the next week combing through the underbrush. You'll find some, maybe most. But you'll never find them all. And you'll never know which ones you missed. The man stared at me. calculating, weighing. You're lying. Maybe. Want to bet your career on it? I met his eyes. Because if even one artifact makes it out, if a hiker finds a Civil War dog tag in the woods with Observation Unit 7 carved on the back, your whole program is blown. It was a bluff, a complete, desperate bluff. But he didn't know that. The silence stretched. "Fuck," the man said quietly. He turned to his team. "Fan out. Secure the area. I want every inch of this hillside searched." They moved immediately, professional, efficient. The man turned back to me. "You're coming with us. You're going to show us exactly where you think the artifacts landed. And then you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement so airtight that your great-grandchildren will be bound by it." "Fine. And Mr. Mercer?" He leaned in close. "If I find out you kept even one item, if a single artifact from that box shows up anywhere, ever, I will know. And I will find you. Understand?" "Understood." He searched me, patted down my jacket, my pants, checked my boots, found nothing. The box was in my hands the whole time, and he never asked to search it again. He'd seen it was empty. What he didn't see was what I'd done while lying in the wreckage of the truck. While I was gathering up scattered artifacts, I'd actually done the opposite. I'd taken 3 items from the box, the smallest, flattest ones I could find, and hidden them. One in my boot, inside the sock liner. One in the lining of my jacket, pushed through a tear in the seam. And one, the photograph, the tintype of the woman and child, folded carefully and placed in my wallet behind my driver's license. They'd never find them. Not unless they strip-searched me. And they wouldn't strip-search me. Not yet. I was still a victim of an accident. Still a citizen with rights. For now. They took me to a hospital in Yakima. Treated me for a concussion, lacerations, bruised ribs. Then to a nondescript office building where I signed papers I didn't read. The NDA was 73 pages long. I initialed every page. The man from the woods, he never gave me his name, walked me through it personally. "You understand the consequences of violating this agreement?" "Yes." "Criminal prosecution, financial penalties, potential imprisonment." "I understand." "Good." He stood, extended his hand. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Mercer. We appreciate your discretion." I shook his hand. His grip was firm, professional. "One more thing," he said. "The Bell and Howell camera. The 8mm? I know you had it with you on the 14th. Where is it now?" My heart stopped. "At home," I said. "In my closet. I didn't bring it today. We'll need to collect it. The film's ruined anyway. Light exposure. I opened the camera to check it after the first encounter. Didn't know what I was doing. Whole cartridges washed out. Another lie. But he couldn't know that. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll still need to collect it, for the record." "Fine, it's at my cabin. 1847 Hemlock Road, outside Randall. We'll send someone tomorrow." He did. 2 men in gray suits showed up at 9 a.m. the next morning. I gave them the camera. They gave me a receipt. The camera they took was my father's Bell and Howell. The film inside was fresh, unexposed. I'd loaded it myself that morning. The real film, the one with 4 minutes and 22 seconds of impossible footage, was already gone. I'd buried it. Not in the forest. Not anywhere they could find it. I'd driven to Spokane the night I got home, at 2 a.m., half delirious with pain meds. Walked into First National Bank when it opened the next morning. Rented a safe deposit box. Box number 237. Put the film inside. along with the 3 artifacts I'd saved, and the carved pendant the creature had given me on September 14th, the one I'd never told anyone about, the one they didn't know existed. Moral coda. 37 years. That's how long I kept the secret. 37 years of waking up every morning knowing what I knew, knowing what I'd seen, knowing what I'd protected and what I'd lost. I finished my career with the Forest Service, 31 years total. Retired in 2010 with commendations and a pension. They gave me a plaque. Carl made a speech. Everyone said I was one of the good ones. I never went back to grid 46 3721N 121-998-9 Rao, not officially. But I drove past it 17 times over the years. Always found a reason to be in the area. Always took the long route home. The burial site was gone. Scraped clean. Reseeded with native plants. No evidence it had ever existed. But I knew. I kept the key to box number 237 in my wallet for 37 years. Right behind my driver's license, right next to the photograph of the woman and child. I never opened the box again, never watched the film, never needed to. The images were burned into my brain, the creature's eyes, the careful arrangement of stones, the gentle placement of artifacts. Someone must remember. I followed the news obsessively. Every Bigfoot sighting, every cryptid report, every mysterious disappearance in national forests. And I noticed patterns. Patterns the public didn't see, wouldn't recognize. Between 1987 and 1995, there were 47 documented Sasquatch sightings in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. After 1995, 11 total. 17 park rangers, Forest Service employees, and wildlife officers died in accidents between 1988 and 2000. Mostly in the Pacific Northwest, mostly in remote areas. I knew 3 of them personally. Good people, experienced. Not the kind to slip on wet rocks or get lost in familiar territory. And logging companies, backed by federal contracts. Clear-cut 180,000 acres of old-growth forest in the Gifford-Pinchot and Olympic areas between 1990 and 2005. Areas that had been protected for decades. Areas where sightings had been most frequent. The government didn't exterminate them. They just erased their habitat. Slowly, methodically, year by year. And the Sasquatch, those ancient, patient witnesses, disappeared back into whatever deep wilderness was left. Smaller populations, more isolated, hidden in the last pockets of forest we hadn't destroyed yet. We won. That's the truth I carry. We saw something that challenged our supremacy, that judged our actions, that kept records of our sins, and we couldn't tolerate it. So we erased it. I got the cancer diagnosis 6 months ago. Stage 4, metastatic. The oncologist was gentle about it, but the message was clear. Get your affairs in order. Emily visited every Sunday after that. Brought her kids, my grandchildren. We'd sit on the porch and watch them play in the yard, and I'd think, what world are we leaving them? A world without witnesses. A world where we can commit any atrocity, any cruelty, and the only ones who remember are the ones who benefit from forgetting. That's why I'm recording this. Not because I think it'll change anything. I'm not naive. One dying man, testimony won't stop the clear-cutting, won't resurrect an extinct species, won't make humanity suddenly capable of self-reflection. But maybe, someone will find this recording. We'll find the key to box number 237. We'll watch that 4-minute and 22-second film and understand. We were not alone, and we did not deserve the grace we were shown. because that's the thing that haunts me, that keeps me awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, counting the days I have left. The creature could have killed me, could have stopped me from filming, could have let me die in that crash. Instead, it saved me, gave me a gift, trusted me to bear witness. And I repaid that trust by signing an NDA and going home. I told myself I was protecting Emily, protecting my family. And maybe that's true. But maybe I was just protecting myself, protecting my comfort, my career, my pension. Maybe I'm no different from the government officials who ordered the relocation, from the soldiers who pulled the triggers at Wounded Knee, from the humans who crossed the land bridge 12,000 years ago and decided that anything other was a threat. The same capacity. That's what the creature told me. You already are them. It was right. I'm going to die in approximately 4 months. Give or take, the hospice nurse says it might be faster if the liver goes first, slower if the lungs hold out. I've made arrangements. Box number 237 at First National Bank in Spokane. The key is taped to the back of this recording in a sealed envelope. Inside the box, the film cartridge, the 3 artifacts I saved, the carved pendant, and a letter explaining everything. I'm leaving instructions with my lawyer. If I die and no one claims the contents of box number 237 within 6 months, he's to release the key to a list of journalists and researchers I've compiled. People I think might actually do something with the evidence. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Maybe the government will intercept it. Maybe the film will be dismissed as a hoax. Maybe no one will care. But I had to try, because the creature was right about one thing. Someone must bear witness, even if, especially if, the witness is the last one standing. I saw something 3 weeks ago that made me decide to finally record this. I was watching the news, BBC World Service, a segment about environmental refugees, climate displacement, habitat loss. And the reporter said something that stopped my heart. Scientists estimate that we're losing approximately 200 species per day to habitat destruction and climate change, most of them invertebrates, plants, and small mammals. Most of them undocumented, disappearing before we ever knew they existed. 200 species per day, undocumented, disappearing before we ever knew they existed. And I thought, who's bearing witness to them? Who's collecting their artifacts? Who's remembering? No one. The Sasquatch are gone, or nearly gone, and we never replaced them, never took up that burden. We just kept destroying, kept forgetting, kept moving forward. That's humanity's great sin, I think. Not the killing, not the cruelty. Every species kills, every species competes. Our sin is the forgetting. We are the only species capable of documenting our own atrocities, and the only species that actively chooses not to. The Sasquatch knew that. They saw it. They tried to compensate for it, and we eliminated them for the trouble. If you're listening to this, you have a choice. You can dismiss it. Call me crazy, senile, a dying man's delusions. That's fine. I understand. Belief requires evidence, and 4 minutes of degraded 8mm film isn't much evidence. Or you can believe me. You can watch the film. You can hold the artifacts. You can feel the weight of that carved pendant in your palm and understand this was real. This happened. And then you'll have to make the same choice I made. Stay silent and protect yourself, or speak up and honor the witness. I chose silence. For 37 years, I chose silence. and I will die knowing that I failed. Failed the creature that trusted me. Failed the victims whose artifacts were meant to be remembered. Failed the burden of witness I was given. Don't make my mistake. Someone must remember. Let it be you. Recording ends 11:47 p.m., November 3rd, 2024. Addendum. Jake Mercer died on February 8, 2025. Cause of death, respiratory failure secondary to metastatic lung cancer. He was 68 years old. Box number 237 at First National Bank, Spokane, Washington. Was opened on August 15, 2025, per the instructions in Mr. Mercer's will. The contents were documented as follows. 1 Bell & Howell 8mm film cartridge, Kodak Ektachrome 160 ASA, 1 carved cedar pendant with leather cord, 1 tintype photograph, circa 1880s, 1 military dog tag, stamped Keo M. 7th Cav, U.S. Army, 1876, 1 child's leather shoe, hand-stitched, circa 1890s, 1 sealed letter, 14 pages, handwritten. The film was sent to a professional archival lab for digitization. The results are inconclusive, or perhaps too conclusive. Either way, the choice is now yours. Someone must remember.